you, Pete, for that generous introduction. I don't deserve some of the nice things Pete said about me, but then I have arthritis. I don't deserve that either. So I guess we take what we can get. Having been out of academia for nearly 2 decades now, I had some trouble trying to decide what to say to you tonight when I was asked to speak here. After all, as a professor emeritus, I'm expected to know something that I can share with you. I could, for example, give you some very practical advice. Lost stealing. Always use sunscreen. Never hire an electrician who has no eyebrows. But that kind of advice is really too basic. Having taught ethics and having watched people rise and fall, I can also tell you about the difficulties that we face for just a simple mistake. I heard this morning, this is a true story, about a doctor who was caught having sex with one of his patients. And when this was discovered, he lost his position with the firm. Here he is now, unable to practice his profession without any income, deep in debt from student loans, and all simply because he had sex with one of his patients. And the sad thing is that people tell me he was a fine fellow, and everyone thought he was a great veterinarian. Well, I've decided it's my show, so I'm going to talk to you about my favorite topic, American history. Now, don't get excited. It's not going to be like the courses you took in high school. And I'm going to concentrate on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Too much misunderstood and misinterpreted documents these days. As you know, you can read the Declaration and the Constitution in a few minutes. They're simple, they're beautifully written, and they can be understood and retained. But they're also miraculous documents in that both were utterly unique for their time. And as we face troubles today, it's important, I think, to look back at these two documents and what they represent in terms not only of what they say, but the time they represent. One of the things that most students of American history never seem to grasp, and I include in this group, most politicians, is that nothing ever had to happen the way it happened. Our history could have gone off in any number of different directions, in any number of different ways, at many points along the way, just as our lives can. You never know. One thing leads to another. Nothing ever happens in a vacuum. Actions have consequences. These things all seem self-evident, but they're really not self-evident. Nor is there ever anything like the past. Nobody ever lived in the past, if you think about it. Jefferson and Adams and Washington, they didn't walk around saying, "Isn't this exciting, living in the past?" They lived in the present, just as we do. And the difference was, it was their present, not ours. And just as we don't know how things are going to turn out for us, they didn't have any idea how things were going to turn out for themselves. It's very easy to stand on the mountaintop as an historian or a biographer or a political candidate and find fault with people for why they did or didn't do this. Because we're not involved in it. We're not inside it. We're not confronting what they didn't know, just as everyone who always preceded us always did. Nor is there any such creature as a self-made man or woman. We Americans, we love that title. We love that expression, we Americans. It was self-made. Well, everyone who's ever lived has been shaped, affected, changed, and helped and hindered by other people. We all know in our own lives those people who have opened a window, have given us an idea, ardently disliked each other. Every one of them did things in his life that he regretted. But the fact that they could rise to the occasion as they did, these imperfect human beings, and do what they did is, of course, also a testament to their humanity. We're not just known by our failings, by our sins, by our weaknesses. We're also known by being capable of rising to the occasion and exhibiting not just a sense of direction, but also strength. There are four incredible things to remember about the Declaration of Independence. First, there had never, in all the long recorded history of the world, been anything like it. It was widely believed at that time that the only way to have political stability was to have a family appointed to rule. The idea of a people ruling themselves simply was out in the distance. No one could imagine. This is beyond the understanding of most folks at that time. Second, look at the end of the Declaration. Its signers were being hunted by British troops. General Gage had a set of orders out to find and detain them as traitors. And here they were, putting their names on the Declaration, a revolutionary document, and sending it to the king. Listen to the last sentence of the Declaration of Independence. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. That's how people talk on the battlefield when they're ready to die for each other. But of course, in a very real sense, our founders were on the battlefield, ready to die for each other. The third thing about the Declaration is even more extraordinary. It opens by talking about universal principles. It does not portray the founding era, the late 18th century, as unique. Its language, when in the course of human events, means any time. It does not portray the founding generation as special or grand or unique. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which had connected them with another, means any people, any time. The Declaration of Independence was an act of obedience. An act of obedience to a law that persists beyond English law, beyond any law the founders themselves might create. It was an act of obedience to, as they put it, the laws of nature and of nature's God, and to certain self-evident principles. Above all, that principle they outlined as all men are created equal, endowed with certain inalienable rights, among these the right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Finally, the Declaration of Independence was an act of incredible bravery and perhaps even arrogance. Think about this. No colony had ever, in the long history of the world, successfully broken away from the mother country. Never. And here our founders were saying that they were going to break away from a mother country that was the mightiest military power on earth. They had no money. They had no navy, no real army. There wasn't a single bank in the entire country. And the roads, for the most part, even the best roads, were mere improved animal trails. There was only one bridge between New York and Boston. Remember, too, that when we were founded by these people in the late 18th century, none of them had any prior experience in either revolutions or nation building. They were, as we would say, winging it. And they were idealistic, and they were young. We see their faces in the old painting done later in their lives, and we're looking at us from the money in our wallets, and we see the awkward teeth and the powdered hair, and we think of them as elder statesmen. But George Washington, when he took command of the Continental Army in 1775 at Cambridge, was 43 years old, and he was the oldest of lot. Jefferson was 33 when I wrote the Declaration. John Adams was 40. Benjamin Rush was 30 when he signed the Declaration. These were young people, feeling their way, improvising, trying to find out what would work. Those men who signed that Declaration in the face of almost certain death on the gallows if they were caught. They did this because they believed in what they were doing, even as they were trying to figure out how to hold together the country in the struggle against Great Britain. But that story, in all its incredible majesty and confusion and glory, is understood by only a handful of Americans today. And that's because we don't teach history anymore. Oh, we have curriculum, but we don't worry about who teaches it. When our school boards are hiring teachers, they say, now we need to get someone qualified to teach science and math. Civics and history, we'll let the coach teach that. And the coach teaches American history with one eye on the football field to make certain their linemen do properly. It isn't the coach's fault that our kids grow up knowing nothing about our great and glorious past or how our government is supposed to work. And I should add in here that I had a high school coach who also taught history, and he was great, but he was an exception. I saw a veteran on TV, a few veteran of World War II on TV a few weeks ago, and he was lamenting the fact that our young people, our high school students, have no idea about the greatest war in American history, World War II. He said he was once introduced as a veteran of World War XI. That's funny, but it's also sad. A 1989 survey by the National Endowment for the Humanities, conducted by the Gallup Foundation, found that 25% of our nation's college seniors, were unable to place Columbus's voyage within the right half century. About the same percentage could not distinguish the words of Karl Marx from ideas of the United States Constitution. They couldn't distinguish, couldn't separate what Churchill said as opposed to what Stalin said. More than 40% college seniors could not tell you when the Civil War occurred. In the contrast book I used when I taught at the College of Law, there were little problems. And the author often used real historical figures as the names of those participants in the problem. I used to ask my contracts class if they knew who Thomas Marshall or Hannibal Hamlin or John Nance Garner were. In 23 years, nobody ever knew. I won't embarrass you tonight. Thomas Marshall was Woodrow Wilson's vice president. A man was presiding over the Senate on a hot summer day, and the senators were arguing about what this country really needs is this, that, and the other. And Thomas Marshall said in a voice that could be heard clear at the back of the chamber, what this country really needs is a good 5-cent cigar. But nobody knew who he was. Hannibal Hamlin was Abraham Lincoln's first vice president, the man he dumped, sadly, in 1864 to run with Andrew Johnson. And John Nance Garner was FDR's first vice president, a man who said the vice presidency wasn't worth a bucket of warm spit. Although he didn't really use the word spit, he used a synonym for urine. Perhaps these figures are a bit obscure. I understand that. But it always surprised me that in 23 years, no one ever knew the name of any of these. My concern over this ignorance of history stems from the famous quote from George Santayana, the Spanish-born American author of the late 19th and early 20th century, who wrote in his book, The Life of Reason, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Or as the great Roman statesman and orator and philosopher Cicero wrote, not to know what happened before you were born. That is to be forever a child. My concern also stems from a very personal concern over what I believe to be an increasing selfishness and lack of gratitude among our younger people. Look, family, friends, teachers, rivals, competitors have all shaped us. But so also have people we've never met, never known, because they lived long before us. The laws we live by, the freedoms we live under, the freedoms we enjoy, the institutions we take for granted, they were all the work of other people who went before us. And to be indifferent isn't just to be rude, it is to be ignorant. Listen to the historian David McCullough talking about John Trumbull's great painting, The 4th of July, July 4, 1776, which hangs in the rotunda of the United States Capitol. He says it's been seen by more people than any other American painting. It's our best known scene from the past. And almost nothing about it is accurate. The Declaration of Independence wasn't signed on July 4th. They didn't start to sign the Declaration until August 2nd, and only a part of Congress was present then. They kept coming back in the months that followed from the distant states to take their turns signing the document. The chairs are wrong. The doors are in the wrong place. There were no heavy draperies on the windows, and the display of military flags and banners in the back of the room is simply a figment of Trumbull's imagination. But what is accurate about it are the faces. Every single one of the 47 men in the painting is an identifiable and thus accountable individual. We know what they look like. We know who they were. And that's what Trumbull wanted. He wanted us to know them and, by God, not to forget them. Because this momentous step wasn't a paper being handed down by a potentate or a king or a czar. It was a decision of a Congress acting freely. In a way, McCulloch was saying that we have to know who we were if we are to know who we are, and to know where we're headed. This is essential. Now, I'm not going to launch an attack on our educational system because I do not believe that we should leave the teaching of history to our teachers. The teaching of history, the emphasis on the importance of history, the enjoyment of history should begin at home. We who are parents and grandparents should be taking our children to historic sites and explaining what happened there. My sons could tell you a thing or two about being dragged to historic sites all over this continent and halfway across Europe. One Thanksgiving weekend, they stood with their mother and me on a little round top at the left end of the Union line in Gettysburg. And they heard me tell, probably lecture, how the Union cause that day was saved by a slightly built professor of rhetoric from Bowdoin College, who had become the most unlikely colonel commanding the 20th Maine. I like to think that they appreciate that place and that remarkable thing that happened there, that steaming Tuesday afternoon in July 1863, because they were there with their mother and me. That's history. That matters. That's why I've taken my grandson to Harper's Ferry and to Gettysburg. There's no secret to teaching history or making history interesting. Barbara Tuchman said it in 2 words. He said, tell stories. What is a story? Ian Forster said, if I say the king died and the queen died, that's a sequence of events. But if I say the king died and then the queen died of grief, that's a story. That's human. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain lied to the faculty at Bowdoin College saying he was going abroad to study and needed a leave of absence. A leave he would not have received had he told the faculty he was going to join the Union Army. But once off the faculty, he was given command of the newly formed 20th Maine Regiment, a unit comprised of extra men left over from other regiments. It was not, Chamberlain noted, one of the state's favorite fighting units. No county claimed it. No city gave it a flag. There was no send-off for the station. But that afternoon, when the 20th Maine was out of ammunition and facing the 5th charge against their position in the 15th Alabama, he didn't retreat or surrender. He ordered his men to fix bayonets and charge down that hill. And charge they did. And they caught the attacking Alabamans by surprise. A little round top was held. You could make the argument the Civil War was won by the North that afternoon because if the 20th Maine's position had been taken and Little Round Top overrun, the entire Union line could have been rolled up and Lee's Army of Northern Virginia would have destroyed the Army of the Potomac. That's a story. That's history. And we need to be telling those stories to our children and grandchildren. You take the Constitution, for example, it's not just a dry document that sets up, forms our nation's fundamental law. It sets up 3 branches of government and provides for the separation of branches. And it doesn't do this because our founders, after a few drinks of grog or what have you, thought it'd be a nice way to do it. Hey, Mr. Jefferson, I have an idea. Let's set up 3 separate branches. That'd be neat. No. No, look at the shut down our legislators. He made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the payment of their salaries. That's why the Constitution sets up separate branches and why it makes federal judges lifetime appointees whose salaries cannot be reduced. That's not just law, that's history. I don't believe you can ever completely separate the two. When after we won the war for independence and discovered that the Articles of Confederation were not going to work, the folks who had drafted the Declaration of Independence set out to draft what became our Constitution. And they had to figure out how to found a government based on a set of principles that had never formed the basis for any government anywhere on earth. Our American ancestors set a high standard, and we have much to learn from them. Much recent historical writing has served us in that respect, has served us ill. Too many so-called scholars have argued that the American past is a record of crime and folly. Too many writers have told us that we are captives to our darker selves and helpless victims of our history. It isn't so, and it never was. Understand this. The long and bloody history of mankind's fight to be free has always been a struggle by the many against the few, against the rule of the few and toward the rule of law, and always against the proposition that might alone makes right. When the framers of our Constitution tried to explain what they were doing, they set it out in the preamble. They were trying, they said, to form a more perfect union. Not perfect, just more perfect than ever before. And as they were drafting that Constitution, our founders were remembering things, like the King's dissolving the legislatures and putting judges under his thumb. They remembered the trials of Sir Walter Raleigh, the Earl of Essex, who was both were browbeaten and condemned and sent to their deaths without the right to testify, the right to counsel, without the right to call witnesses. They were recalling the bills of attainder, under which Parliament had, as judge and jury and prosecutor, sent them to their deaths without giving them the chance to defend themselves. They remember the struggle of the poor New York printer, John Peter Zinker. His only crime was he published the truth about that crown colony's government. They remember their forefathers' flight to this continent to find a place where they could worship God as they saw fit, without interference from the government. They remembered all the evils of government run amok, and because they remembered, they wrote the Bill of Rights, which has been described as the only political philosophy that permits the individual to say no to the government and get away with it. And because they remembered and wrote that Bill of Rights, today, as in 1789, we the people are the guardians and protectors of that Bill of Rights. Without our protection, it is no exaggeration to say that the Bill of Rights would long since have disappeared. There are no holidays for history. See, despite its moments of high drama, the American experience has been, for the most part, a quiet undertaking. But don't ever let the quiet fool you. The quiet of the American experience is the quiet of the storm center. And if you listen very carefully in the midst of all that quiet, you can almost hear what Bruce Captain once called the faint, haunting echoes of democracy's trumpets. The people governing themselves. We Americans have always done a pretty good job at that. And our Constitution has let us do just that. In other countries, the totem of the society is a crown or a mausoleum or a spot of sacred land. In the United States, it is a document under glass in the National Archives, the longest surviving and greatest written national constitution on the face of the earth. The story of America's past, researched and read properly, is in large part the story of ordinary people being called on to do extraordinary things. And we cannot understand and appreciate our present and the laws we must deal with daily unless we understand our past. ties between the disciplines of law and medicine and science and philosophy, art, music, whatever. One final word that I believe is especially appropriate for these times. I'm 8 days shy of my 80th birthday, and I have been watching elections since 1948 when I was 10. If I've learned anything from watching all these elections, it is that no one election is ever the end. If you win, don't get too heady and excited, because ultimately, you're going to lose. If you lose, don't get too down and defeated, because ultimately, your time will come. The most remarkable thing about the 18 presidential elections that I have witnessed personally over the past 70 years is how, after a bitterly partisan election campaign, we can have the most peaceful transition of power from one party to another. How the loser never issues a call for revolution instead of closing with the winner. It's how, over the last 18 presidential elections that I've watched, the only armed personnel that we see surrounding the White House on election night are the District of Columbia cops directing traffic on Pennsylvania Avenue. That is an American reality that we ought to be celebrating. We complain about our country being so divided, but if you study history, you realize it's always been divided. That's why one party can have an enormous victory at the polls, like the Democrats did in 1964, and the Republicans in 1972, and be out of office 4 years later.